Hello there, and welcome to episode 41 of The Piping Show. I'm Andrew Bova, and it is once again my pleasure to be your host this week. This will be the last episode in Season 2 of The Piping Show, before we take a wee break to focus on piping live and work on the content for Season 3. If you have any ideas about people you'd like to see on the show or items you'd like to see featured in the history segments, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll take that all on board as we plan the next season, which will come out some point later this year. This week I'm pleased to be joined by Matt Wilson, who is Pipe Sergeant of Field Marshal Montgomery Pipe Band and also one of the piping teachers up at Dollar Academy. Before we get to Matt, let's go to Helen Urquhart with this week's news.
July and August are packed with piping and drumming events across the world. This Saturday, the Scottish Pipe Band Championships takes place in Dumbarton, featuring all grades of pipe bands at Leven Grove Park. It's free for spectators to attend. In Stornoway, from the 8th to the 12th of August, there is the Tattoo Metagama, celebrating the centenary of the historic Hebridean emigration of 1923 and 24. The SS Metagama was one of the first ships to leave the islands carrying emigrants over to Canada. There is a grand concert featuring the 78th Fraser Highlanders on the 11th of August, and you can find out more at bagpipe.news. From the 12th to 20th of August, Piping Live is back with a full programme of in-person and online events. Tickets are selling fast, so get yours now or check out the full programme of free events that we have across the week at pipinglive.co.uk. The World Pipe Band Championship sees over 150 bands compete on Glasgow Green on Friday the 18th and Saturday the 19th of August. Tickets can be bought in advance for this great day of music at theworlds.co.uk.
Hello there. Today I have a very special item for you that doesn't come from our collection, and that is the Grade 1 World Pipe Band Championship Trophy. The trophy is officially known as the RSPBA Jubilee Trophy, but is colloquially known in the pipe band world as the Spike. Now, the trophy was introduced in 1980 and replaced what was then the SPBA Cup, or the Scottish Pipe Band Association Cup. And if we look at the top of the trophy, we can see it reads, "Presented by the Ladies Committee of the RSPBA to commemorate the Golden Jubilee, 1930 to 1980. And it was in 1980 that the Scottish Pipe Band Association was bestowed the title of Royal by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Let's take a look at the trophy and some of the features that make the trophy unique. Perhaps most notably as what makes it known as the Spike, which is a chanter that comes up from the center of what is designed to look like a globe. You can see the latitude and longitude lines all along it. Around the side, we have drumming represented with the sort of older style of rope tension drums, or rope tension that would be used on older snares. And then at the bottom, we have the face of the trophy where winners are engraved. Interestingly, the trophy has been modified since its original introduction. If we look here at a picture of the trophy, and this is from 1988, you notice that that silver band that is present on the new trophy isn't yet there. The reason that that was added was they ran out of room on the trophy to list winners in 2014. So in 2014, this band was added, and Field Marshal Montgomery is the first name on that band. Of course, with a trophy like this, there's plenty of history to be discussed. And just a few things of note, or bands of note. The trophy was first won in 1980 by Shotts and Dykehead, Caledonia. An interesting tidbit of information about Shotts: it's the only band to have won the Worlds in every decade since its inception in 1947. They've not yet won it in the 2020s, but no doubt they'll be chasing it soon. Following that win in 1980, we have the famous 6 in a row from Strathclyde Police Pipe Band. And perhaps equally famously, in 1987, we have the 78th Fraser Highlanders winning the trophy, being the first non-Scottish band to win. I'd like to say a big thank you to Pipe Major Richard Parks and Matt Wilson, who very generously agreed to loan me this trophy to film this history segment before it's returned to the RSPBA. Matt, thanks so much for coming and agreeing to be on the show. It's been a long time in the making. So I'll ask, just to start, sort of the same question that I ask every guest we have on the show. How did you get into piping?
For me, it was my dad that really got me started into piping. He was a piper, was pipe major of a Grade 1 band back then, Scottish Gas Caledonia. And as I was growing up, that was, I think I spent my first contest on the pipe band bus at probably 4 or 5 weeks old. So really kind of growing up through the pipe band movement was natural to me, I guess. And then I started around 7 and then took it from there. So even though Dad was there, I felt it was important that I went somewhere else for my tuition, so that there wasn't that easiness for me to snap back at him whenever he was trying to teach me something. But the support was always there at home if I needed it between lessons at that stage. So,
and who were you going to for tuition?
I initially started with Tom Spears, and I've probably a little bit, in hindsight, too young at that point, and I quit probably a few months in, and then when I was about 9, that's when I started back again. And there was a tutor that came to school of a chap called Neil Cameron, who came over from Fife, and I really took to it again, and the rest kind of developed from there. Once I'd kind of got my basics, first few tunes, I got onto pipes. Dad sent me up to the castle at Edinburgh to Gavin Stoddart, and that's when I was probably around 10 or 11 at that point, and with my tuition there. So that was really a great grounding for me at that point to then move on from that stage. Yeah.
And then you went to Northern Ireland for uni, which is the same time that you joined Field Marshal, correct? Yeah. So which came first, the chicken or the egg there?
The main reason why I went across to Northern Ireland was to play with the band, and that was the vehicle to get me there, was to pick Queen's University to attend. At that stage, we didn't have the setup that we have now with Scottish-based players practicing in Scotland, and it was very much a band based in Northern Ireland. And yes, there were guest players that flew in from Scotland, but they were of a standard that they could do that. I was not that standard, so for me it had to be, I needed to get myself to Belfast. And the rest is history from there.
So then what was the draw for you as a young man to go and play in Field Marshal?
I remember listening first of all to the debut album. I think I was probably around 9, and my tutor at that point had actually given me a copy of it, and I just got completely hooked on definitely the sound that was produced, and obviously the music with that. I got hooked on that, and that was something that really inspired me at that stage. You can't really go into fine detail because I didn't have the knowledge back then of what it was that hooked me, but it definitely did. The sound of it definitely hooked me into that. And then, being a bit of a pipe band geek, I used to follow the band around the place, try and see where they were tuning up, and I had a complete draw to the band. Don't know what it was at that point, but it definitely drew me in. And at that stage, that was something that we all say, oh, I'd love to do X, Y, or Z whenever I'm older, but that was definitely something I wanted to do, is play with the band. And as time went on, and I developed my own playing, and I could see a pathway that would allow me to go and study in Northern Ireland and the potential to join the band. It was something that obviously I was trying to manifest as far as my studies were concerned to allow me to make that jump.
You've been in for 21 years, 10 world titles, and you've gone from being sort of a rank and file player, a young man, to now being the pipe sergeant and, you know, running things on this side of the pond. I'm curious, you know, how have you seen the band change over the years?
It's definitely, there's a lot of changes, but there's also a lot of fundamentals that have never changed. One major change is when you're new and young. I was 18 when I joined the band. You have this, there's a trepidation almost. You're just wanted to make sure that you make yourself part of that group first and foremost. And I spent the first few years making sure that I was doing everything that I could to learn, take everything on board, and stay part of that group. And I don't think that really ever changed to an extent, because it was this want to keep being part of it, but also keep improving. And you do come to a natural point where you become more comfortable in what you're doing because you've been through the process so many times, and after a number of years that just becomes a little bit more relaxed, and you gain confidence. And so you can see when younger players do join the band, you can kind of relate to that point that everyone goes through. The band size has increased quite a bit. I can remember, I think in 2004, I think we went on with 21 pipers in the March of Spain rule that year, I think. And at that point, that was one of the biggest pipe corps that went out that year at the Worlds. We now look at numbers, and that's very much an average size band. Yeah. I remember obviously when the Frasers came over in 06-ish, 07.
I think it was 07.
07,
yeah, 07.
And it was 30 something, and that was massive, But so one thing is obviously band sizes has increased, our own as well. Been so many developments through the years that you look at perhaps medley structure, you look at, and what probably more so, the more intricacies as far as time signatures, and also the way harmonies have been developed over that time as well. It's actually really quite inspiring to see what a lot of people do to enhance music. The one big thing that probably happened through that time as a band was the aspect of bass and tenor work really did transform from my early days in the band to what now happens, and I've seen that shift happen quite a lot. So there was a big visual aspect happened in the mid-2000s where people were maybe going too much along the visual aspect and losing the rhythmical and tonal aspect of it. And I think now it's kind of come back where it's got the best of both worlds, and a lot of bands are doing some really interesting stuff, but we need to be careful that we don't overstep the mark there as well.
Mm-hmm. So then, thinking about moving away from FM, you're the instructor at Dollar Academy, again one of the sort of most successful bands, if not, well, the most successful band in the juvenile grade in recent history. So you're involved with these two bands that are really very, very successful, but I imagine it's two very different experiences. How do you find running the youth band to be different from working with FM?
with both, you're essentially working with children that you're starting from scratch. You're trying to develop players, even players that come to us that already play. It's trying to develop them further. When you're working with players in FM, you're working with ready-made players already. So that's where you have the fundamental difference there. You also need to adapt your approach to the management of people, because I cannot treat field marshal players the same way as I treat a 12 or 13-year-old, and you have to guide them. Sometimes they'll get it wrong and you have to remind them of certain things. You have to have two very different types of approach between the two. Because I know that I wouldn't like to be spoken to like a child at a band practice. So, and that's not to say that you're being in any way demeaning towards anyone. It's a different approach, just to make sure that you're guiding and instructing and helping, as you do in the FM approach as well. You obviously want to get your point across as to the way that you want things expressed, played, whatever it might be. But you do have to be very thoughtful in the way that you approach that and how you work with people.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because at practice, we'll run through a set, and then at the end there's sort of the recap. What do we need to work on? And there's times where you'll be kind of going over this point or that point, and in the back of my head I go, right, there's the teacher. There's a teacher in that coming out, and it's interesting to see that in the pipe band context, and that sort of professionalism and that you have from the teaching come into the band. But then maybe a more interesting question to ask, I think the differences maybe are quite obvious between running a kids organization and an adult organization. Are there any similarities between running the two?
Some of the immaturities in both, myself included.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, essentially what you're trying to achieve is the same thing. Yes, it's at different standards, but you're trying to achieve the same goal of trying to present pipe band music in the best way that you see possible, and sounding the best way that group can sound. And so the fundamentals of that are exactly the same, but they're two very different outputs in certain respects. But I try to get my dollar output as close to an FM output as I can, because as I've always said, that it's amazing what young people can achieve whenever you can try and guide them and give them a platform to play at, and that level. If you try and increase the level, they'll always try and better it. And if I can try and do that with them, it's only going to be good for the band output, but also for them personally. I look at it in respects of, you work very hard in what we do at school to allow them to perform, and they can then take that and apply that same methodology towards for their exams, like, for example, so that yes, they do get put under a little bit of pressure. If I'm doing a one-on-one with them, or we go and play at contests, or we play at events, so that they are exposed in certain ways, it allows them to deal with the exam aspect, or going for an interview for university, or indeed the workplace after that. It does hopefully help them in that respect. And the processes that we go through are exactly the same as the processes of tuning and trying to get playing together, the same as what we would with field marshal. So the ones that have been successful and that have made the jump over to field marshal, it's not an alien concept to them whenever they come over, even though there's a huge step up for them.
Well, speaking of practice, I think we've got one to get to ourselves. So thank you very much for coming early and spending the time with me.
Not at all. Thank you.